Hey ToyFans, welcome back to Project Geek Week. With me this week I've got Greg.
Hey there.
And we are going to be talking about Age of Ultron this week. So if you guys haven't seen that movie, just know we are going to do a spoiler-free sort of overview of the movie as we get things started. And then at the end of the show, the last, 20 minutes of it maybe, is just going to be all spoiler talk about Age of Ultron. So stick with us to the beginning part of the show, get your regular geek news, and then know if you haven't seen Age of Ultron, go ahead and save this video, the rest of it for later. And once you've had a chance to see the movie, definitely come back and check out what our thoughts are and share your thoughts with us and see, kind of where we think the universe is headed.
We've also got our Avengers out here.
Yes, as you can see here, Disney Infinity. And we'll be talking more about Infinity later on in the show day. We had some news on that this week. So the first thing I want to talk about, I guess, is Age of Ultron. So non-spoiler opinions of what you thought of the movie.
I thought it was great. For the first Avengers movie, for me, it was kind of your standard superhero schlocky movie. It was a good movie, but it wasn't impactful, I guess, for me. But this movie I felt like was much more plot driven. There was a lot more going on, and it didn't feel just like a superhero movie to me, I guess. I mean, it felt like there was a lot more substance to this movie, and I really enjoyed that. A minor complaint I would have is that I felt like the trailers really built up Ultron to be more of this kind of dark and serious and very powerful villain, and while he was powerful in the movie, it never really felt like he was a huge threat. Like the threat was always more to the people than the Avengers, like the average citizens. But yeah, I thought it was very well done, and I definitely enjoyed Spader in the role, and I enjoyed seeing the twins. I enjoyed their presence. And we got a lot more with Hawkeye, which
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody expected that.
Not at all, yeah.
So yeah, his character got fleshed out a whole lot more.
I mean, I would say, and I don't think it's spoilers to say, there were times where he was really kind of taking up a leadership role almost, it seemed like. I mean, he really seemed like he was more important to this team than we'd seen previously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it's a spoiler, but at least until Fury showed up.
He's in the trailer.
Yeah, so I think that was really, he was kind of the moral center or the leadership center, especially because you had so much conflict between Iron Man and the rest of the team. Even like Iron Man's right-hand man in the movie, in a way, was Banner, his right-hand man in science at least. And even Banner wasn't really sure about how Iron Man was taking things at times. So
yeah. So no, I totally agree. And on your comments about Ultron not being as menacing as we kind of expected, there was more humor coming from Ultron than I thought really had anticipated going into the movie. Some genuine, really nice laughs. And I think especially because Spader was delivering the lines at times, it just really kind of said it. And I appreciate Ultron at times even having the mannerisms of Spader. I mean, I kind of talked to you after we'd seen the movie. There's a point early in the film where he's talking to Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, or well, they're not called that in the movie, where he's talking to Pietro and Wanda, and he just has that James Spader sort of head cocked, and he's just listening, kind of nodding along as they're speaking. It's it definitely seemed kind of Spader-esque.
I didn't expect his lips to move so much.
Oh, I didn't either. Yeah.
At the beginning of the film, when he was just the Iron Legion robot, the damaged Iron Legion robot, his lips didn't move at all.
Right.
And I kind of expected that's what it would be moving
Yeah,
forward.
and that's the way Ultron is in the comics. His mouth doesn't move, yeah.
So yeah, that was a little bit strange.
Yeah, so, and then I think action-wise this film really delivered, but this film also...
Sorry, the scene at the beginning with the party was so good. It was so great getting to see kind of the Avengers not in an action serious setting, they're just hanging out having a good time, and the thing with the hammer and
yes, and that's one thing that I think is really great about this movie is of all the Marvel films so far, it has felt the most connected, I think, of any of the other films that have come out. This movie also did a really great job of showing us familiar faces while also introducing new ones. I mean, I think this is the biggest universe building film we've had, well, probably since the original lead-up films into the original Avengers movie, but I felt like everything that had come before mattered. I mean, you could argue when you watch the first Avengers movie that it's not really important to know what was going on with Thor so much, not really important to know what was going on with Hulk, but they did enough in this movie to kind of remind you of the status quo of every hero, what they were up to. There's people that show up from Captain America's movies that give you not a lot, just a little bit of a reminder of, oh, this is where Cap's at this point, and they even comment on his current situation, where his mindset would be post Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So I really appreciated just that attention to detail all around. So in that sense, I think that the film really excelled.
Absolutely.
So well, I guess we'll go ahead and leave it there, just in case anything else you want to elaborate on turns out to be a spoiler.
Yeah, agreed.
So
there are a lot more things I want to say, but it's just like, is that a spoiler? I don't know.
Initial impressions are definitely positive, guys. So if you're stopping right now because you haven't seen the movie, I would say go in, always have your expectations in check when you see a movie, but go in expecting more good than bad, I think.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on to the next line item we have here for the news. Kind of on the topic of the Marvel Cinematic, well, exactly on the topic of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is there was a supposed leaked title that came out for the next Spider-Man movie. And it was called Spider-Man: The New Avenger. Very much echoing Captain America, the first Avenger, the first Captain America movie. First, I guess, your thoughts on the title.
Well, yeah, my first thought, and I just heard this last night when we were at the movie premiere, was that, yeah, it was definitely a throwback to the Captain America movie. And I mentioned this last night that I'm curious if that means they're going to take the more prequel approach with it. If that throwback to Captain America's title means that it's also going to be more like the Captain America movie, and we're going to see Spider-Man before all of the events that we've already seen, which kind of helps you build up to him being already an established presence by the time we get to the movies in Phase 2.
I think that'd be fantastic. I mean, I think a lot of Marvel fans, we don't know which movie for sure, but we know that between now and the time that Spider-Man, if it's called this, Spider-Man: The First Avenger comes out, Spidey will show up in an MCU movie. It's not really a spoiler to say, and I don't want you guys to get your hopes up, he's not in Avengers 2. Yeah. So he's either going to show up in Ant-Man, he's going to show up in Captain America, or Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange and Ant-Man both seem like unlikely candidates at this point. It really seems like Captain America Civil War would be the movie that you'd want him to show up in. Yep. So it'd be fantastic if he shows up in Civil War. He's already established, he's running his mouth, he's like able to hold his own with the heroes, and we just kind of get this instant burst of, here's the Spidey we all know from the comics, he's with the Avengers and he can hold his own. And then the first Avenger is the prequel film, and we don't need the Uncle Ben death and things like that, but give us the film that shows him kind of becoming where he is right now. I think that'd be a really cool way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. It would definitely be nice for when he shows up in Civil War to not be bogged down by his exposition.
Exactly, right. Yeah. So let us have fun with the character first. Mm-hmm. So, and in that sense, I think that the title is actually a pretty cool title. Yep. My concern with the title, that's Spider-Man: The New Avenger, is that it would almost pigeonhole him to being an Avengers character right off the bat. And I don't know that that's the best way you want to introduce this guy. I understand the need to be different. And making him so forefront and so connected to the Avengers is actually really in line with the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon that Disney's been producing. From the first episode, Nick Fury's been in his life, and he's been saying this whole time you're training to be an Avenger. So I can understand from the corporate synergy mindset why they'd want to go that direction with the movie, to very much like do a live action version of what they did on the animated series. But at the same time, I'd like for Spider-Man to still be able to be Spider-Man when he's in his solo films.
I don't know the New Avengers continuity well enough. Is he a new Avenger, or is that just a...
No, actually. Yes, he is. Uh-huh. So after Avengers Disassembled, when Brian Michael Bendis relaunched the book, and the first time we ever got a new Avengers team, like the New Avengers, when that came out, Spidey was one of the guys. So
do you think that's an intentional reference in the title then?
It's no accident. Yeah. And... stick around for the Ultron spoiler talk. Absolutely. So, but anyway, so I guess we're both kind of curious about the title.
Definitely.
So we'll see if that turns out to be true and where we kind of go from there. Uh-huh. So, and then the next thing is we got a ton of photos this week from X-Men Apocalypse. Yeah, and I said on last week's show, they start filming on Monday. People were ready, man. So what was it, Monday or Tuesday? We got leaks of... Jubilee on the set, Jean, of Cyclops, of Nightcrawler, and then we got some concept art that leaked out. So the first thing I think we want to talk about is Jubilee. That was certainly, I think, the biggest image.
I swear, they pulled her directly off of the 90s comic. Like, they had it on a piece of paper and they just ripped her off.
Right?
It was like, this is what Jubilee looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I thought she looks absolutely phenomenal.
Yep.
I mean, we still don't know if that woman, I'm forgetting her name, excuse me, but we don't know if she can act yet, but she certainly looks the part, which I think is very important.
Absolutely.
So was
they've got
really
the look
cool.
down for sure.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody, I would say, like Jean, who just isn't really selling me on the Jean Grey look so far. And I've watched a lot of Game of Thrones, so really it's hard for me to not see her as just Sansa Stark.
Okay.
But also, I mean, she has the 80s pants. She has like the 80s hairdo. But it doesn't look like Jean to me. I don't know. We'll have to see and once maybe if there's more footage or something at some point. But
I think in response to the leaked photos that came out, Bryan Singer actually did end up putting on his Instagram an image, because like the original image of Jubilee that we got, she was in her like coat that she's supposed to have had fastened while she was walking between sets, and she didn't.
Yeah.
Bryan Singer released a picture of Jubilee and Jean standing next to each other, and it was definitely a much more like, these are the costumes as the way I was kind of hoping you would see them. So hopefully we'll get more of that with Sansa Stark as it moves on. He gives us a better idea of what kind of attitude we can expect from this Jean character. So another image that was released was Nightcrawler. So we had, did we talk about on last week's show the first image of Nightcrawler, or was that also released since last week? Okay, so Bryan Singer teased us with Nightcrawler, and then we full on got Nightcrawler. So let's go ahead and I'll put it up on the screen right now, the image that Bryan Singer teased us with, which showed Nightcrawler in sort of civilian clothes, I guess, like a gray jacket. And honestly, I thought the look of Nightcrawler was pretty nice, except I'm not a fan of the hair. He's got a huge, almost flock of seagull style, just like coif of hair coming over the side of his face.
They're
on one side.
Definitely doing the 80s thing.
They're doing the 80s thing, and I totally get that that's period specific, but Nightcrawler's never really had that hair in the comics, and I don't really associate him with that sort of look. So I just think for me it's kind of weird. Outside of that though, I think they were doing great, and I think Cody Smith-McPhee, one thing that they've done great by casting this like incredibly scrawny guy with eyes that are just a little bit wide apart, and he's kind of got like bigger poutier lips. He almost looks mutant without makeup. So once they put him in the Nightcrawler makeup, it really sells it. Like, this is a very particular looking individual, and I think he really embodies Nightcrawler when he's got the blue on his face. And I think that was further exacerbated by the image of Nightcrawler that leaked of him wearing the Thriller jacket, which I thought was phenomenal. Of course, Thriller.
I mean, they're obviously trying to evoke Michael Jackson.
Absolutely.
Thriller. There's no way there's not.
Yeah. Right? So I thought that was absolutely perfect. And on top of it being the Thriller jacket, which is great, because Nightcrawler I think is a perfect fit to be wearing that. The jacket also has the coincidence, I guess, of being a red jacket with sort of a triangular pattern on it, red and black colors, very much similar to Nightcrawler's actual costume. And because he's wearing that jacket, I almost wonder if there aren't going to be any X-Men costumes, like superhero costumes in this movie, but we'll kind of see where they go with that. But
they have more of the organic costumes. It's like they're wearing things that resemble what they should
be, yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all at this point. They basically dumped costumes, I think, after X-Men First Class. Days of Future Past came out, and yeah, Magneto had a suit, but Beast never put on a costume, Xavier never put on a costume, so it almost seems like they're moving away from that anyway.
And it would be interesting to see like them have almost their I guess their pre-costume costumes. Like, it's like they aren't intentionally wearing costumes, but you can see where in the future, if they had costumes, that's where they would come from.
So that, yeah, absolutely. And then of course we also got an image of Ty Sheridan, I think is who's playing Cyclops. Mm-hmm. And we didn't get as great a look at him, but I think it's notable that you actually see him with his Cyclops glasses on. So they are sort of a blue-framed sunglass with red lenses, so that's kind of cool. But it's nice that we have these shots out. I guess they're filming in a mall. That's significant, because in the comics and even in the X-Men 90s series, they meet Jubilee for the first time in a shopping mall. So in the mall's
gonna happen.
Yeah, right? So the mall's even called the Galleria, just like the comics. And there's been some other pretty cool images that have come out. We saw an electronics boutique storefront that's in this mall. So I didn't realize this, I guess, at the time, how old the electronics boutique is. But the image in this mall is just a bunch of, like, you know, giant shoulder-mounted stereos. You know, it's things like that. I always think of EB, of course, EB Games, what they ended up becoming before they got bought out by GameStop. But and then we had
the Return of the Jedi.
The Return of the Jedi, yeah. There's a movie theater in the mall playing Return of the Jedi. And what's key about that is that lets us know what year this movie takes place.
Yep.
Return of the Jedi took place in 1983. Now, a couple notes there. Jubilee was not introduced until 1989, so she's appearing in the movie earlier than she appeared in the comics. And Thriller, I'm pretty sure the album Thriller came out in 1985. I don't have the date in front of me. So if Return of the Jedi, it could be a situation where it's been in theaters for so long that it's still going on at this point, but it's kind of funny if Nightcrawler's wearing the Thriller jacket before the Thriller music video happened. So, but I'm very much enthused by what's come out for X-Men Days of Future Past so far. Or X-Men Apocalypse so far.
For the very little we've had, it's definitely the right leak. So
right, yeah. So exciting stuff. Can't wait for more. Again, they're just filming, so we're going to get a lot of stuff. We haven't even seen Magneto, Xavier, Quicksilver, Wolverine if he's going to be in it, Mystique. None of this stuff has come out. So much more to come from that. And then as far as our book for this week, the shop that I frequent didn't get in this week's issue of TMNT, which I was really upset about. Last week, you'll remember, or the last couple of weeks ago, we reviewed the issue 44, I think it was, where Donatello died. So at some point, I plan to get my hands on whether it be a reprint or when my shop finally gets that book in. We will be covering that because I'm very much curious to see sort of the fallout of Donatello's death in the book, and we'll talk about that more in detail. But no book review for us this week, so without that, let's go ahead and jump right into television news.
Sure.
So let's go ahead and save Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for our spoiler talk for Age of Ultron.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and start with Gotham, I guess.
Okay.
And with Gotham, we had a pretty interesting show this week.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us, I guess, the rundown of what happened in the show?
Sure. So the primary, like the A plot this week was getting this resolution on the Barbara Ogre plot line that they set up last week. It was kind of unclear where that left off because Barbara looked at him and then smiled, and we didn't know if that was her being okay with him being a murderer or her thinking, oh, this is a kinky sex dungeon, and that sounds fun. It seems like it was the latter because at the start of this episode, the two of them clearly had a night, and they made some reference to how they only got about an hour of sleep, hurt her. But then Ogre wouldn't let her go, and she was not okay with this. And I think he eventually drugged her, and that was kind of where that left off for a bit. And then we saw Nigma with the body of the guy that he killed last week. I can't remember, Officer Doherty, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And Kringle saw it, but she didn't know that it was Doherty's body. And then Nigma left her a note that basically, him saying, I'm leaving, I'll see ya. And we don't really know what the fallout of that's going to be.
Real quick, let me stop you on that note. That note was sort of a Dear John letter for Miss Kringle. It had the adverse effect of making Miss Kringle think she doesn't need men anymore, which is kind of funny, sad for Enigma. But we also got a very Riddler moment when
he left a hint on
a hint on the letter that he was the one who wrote it. So she covered up almost all the letters except for the leading letter in every sentence on the letter on the note. And there were enough lines and enough letters that it spelled out Enigma. So we got that sort of.
And she didn't pick up on it.
She didn't pick up on it at all.
Maybe
but
she'll realize it eventually. But
we'll see. That's definitely something that Batman would pick up on. So I love that was that sort of nod there. But go ahead.
So then as the Ogre plotline progressed, we had Gordon looking for Barbara. And let's see. There was also stuff with Bruce. I guess we'll get back to that in a second. I'll wrap up the Ogre stuff first. So Ogre and Barbara were together, and Barbara obviously was not happy with this, and the Ogre was telling her that she's special, and he sees something in her he hasn't seen in his other women. And then he basically tried to get her to name someone else to kill. Because if she didn't name someone, he was going to kill her. So she decides to name her parents.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then the Ogre goes to her parents' place and seemingly kills everyone there before Jim and Harvey show up and stop him, and they shoot him in the head. So Barbara's pretty messed up now.
Yeah.
I think she was drugged prior to this, but it's still very odd that she would choose to... I mean, we saw her parents previously, and they were not nice people, but the whole actually naming them to be killed seemed a bit drastic. Maybe we'll get more of that in the future, but certainly that's not going to leave... she's going to have a hard time living with that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Bruce this week was tracking down Bunderslaw. He went to Wayne Enterprises and pulled a fire alarm and then snuck into Bunderslaw's office, but Bunderslaw saw him. Probably was expecting this because I figured last week he knew that they had pickpocketed the key. Yeah. It kind of seemed like he knew something was coming. He gave Bruce something he called the cookie. Was it actually a cookie?
It looked like it.
Yeah. He made some joke about how you reach into the jar and pull out a cookie, and I don't know, that it wasn't his jar to reach into or something. But then he sent Lucius Fox.
First appearance.
Yeah. To take Bruce back out of the building. So that was interesting. I don't think any of us expected to see Lucius Fox.
Also notable that Lucius Fox seems to be aware of what's going on at Wayne Enterprises, and kind of let Bruce know, I know what's going on. Just basically, that's what he wanted him to know. He wanted him to know what was going on.
He also hinted that his father, in addition to being involved in the less wholesome activities, might have been doing something on the side.
Yeah, almost as if his father was maybe Batman. Yeah, it was kind of weird. Yeah.
So that's where that one left off. Alfred knows about the Bunderslaw murder now. Bruce told him about that, or not the Bunderslaw, the Reggie Payne murder, which Bruce told him about. And was there anything else that I'm forgetting this week? There was some Penguin stuff.
Yeah,
Penguin.
Lots of stuff actually with the Penguin.
Yeah, Penguin's assassin tried to kill Maroni, and it turned out that Penguin had actually set him up to be unable to kill Maroni, which started a whole gang war between, for Maroni and Falcone.
And the great thing about that is Penguin's sitting back right now just letting these two guys waste each other, and he's just loving it.
Yeah, the episode I think ended with him just sitting there laughing.
Yeah.
And fortunately, no fish this week.
Yeah, that was it, because the last time we saw her, she was shot and bleeding out in a helicopter.
Yeah, we haven't seen her in 2 weeks now.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's kind of a sign of the fact that they're kind of done with her on the show anyway. They're kind of moving on beyond her.
I think there's only, 2 episodes left?
Of this season? Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, she's going to have to show up by the end of the season.
Yeah, you got to think since she's not going to be back next season that they're going to have to resolve that. But
I got to be honest, man. I didn't notice her missing.
Yeah, I think they've gotten the message that people are not enjoying that plot line. It took long enough. But, yeah, it's nice to not have to deal with her.
Yep. So
and Barbara's more interesting now. Like Barbara took a lot of flack early on for being kind of a useless character. I think she's certainly developed somewhat. Also, I was surprised. I think I predicted this on the show last week, and it ended up not being true. That Gordon would still be in love with Barbara. They pretty much busted that.
They really did. Yeah.
It was like I'm protecting her because I put her in danger, but I am in love with you, Lee. So they made that very explicit.
Yep. So. But overall, I think it was a good episode of Gotham this week. So
yes, definitely some good progression. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, well, let's go ahead and move on to. We'll do Arrow first.
I'll do Flash first because Flash actually technically airs first.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so Flash was a big week. We had basically the episode was called The Trap, and where last week left off, we had Cisco, Caitlin, and Barry in what do they call it? The time chamber or something.
Okay.
Harrison Wells' secret room. And they were talking to Gideon, his AI, right away, and we got a little bit of Barry saw the newspaper, which has been shown throughout the season, and he also saw, so he knows that he's going to go missing in the future now. He also saw that the article was written by Iris West Allen, so he knows that there's going to be some connection there as well. And he also asked Gideon about himself, and Gideon stopped just short of revealing that the Flash was a founding member of the Justice League. They didn't say the Justice League, but Gideon said Flash, founding member of, and then Barry cut her off.
And let's just say the way all the seasons are, well, let me put it this way. With the number of spin-off shows we're getting, it seems like a television Justice League is almost a necessity at this point, right?
Yeah.
So it would be very interesting, if that's what they're foreshadowing.
Also, and I don't know if this is a spoiler, but if it is, I don't know, put some fingers in your ears for a second. But people have transcribed the newspaper article, and they have seen that in the article it makes reference to Adam, and also I can't remember who the third one is, but Hawk Girl is in the article.
Yes.
So, and I think she's been
cast in the spinoff series. Yep.
So we definitely got some connections there too. It was Adam, Green Arrow, and Hawk Girl.
Okay.
That were there at the fight where
the phrase Green Arrow.
Yeah, they said Green Arrow. Okay. At the fight where Reverse Flash and Barry disappear in the future, those three were supposed to be there.
Okay.
Okay. So also we had them trying to crack into Cisco's flashbacks of the other timeline. They got him some goggles, which he used to enter REM sleep and lucid dream his other timeline. And my understanding is that the goggles are actually things that Vibe wears in the comics. I don't know the comics well enough, but so that's for people who are waiting for more Vibe progression. They're like, yay! And also the way that they induced his trip to the other timeline was by bombarding him with 45 hertz radiation or something, so or sound waves. So there's a Vibe connection there too as well. So they were trying to figure out what was going on in that timeline. They wanted to get Harrison to admit that he killed Nora Allen, and they tried to set a trap for Harrison using the containment chamber from the episode The Man in the Yellow Suit. And Joe and Barry waited in the room where Wells came in and started talking to Cisco, and Cisco had rigged up the chamber so that he would keep out speedsters. So he backed up and stood in the chamber, then turned on the shield, and then Wells walks right through the shield and everybody's like, what's going on? But then we find out after Joe jumps out and tries to, well, he shoots Harrison and Harrison gets hit in the chest with the bullet, falls over, and we find out that Harrison in the chamber is actually the guy, Hannibal Bates, the shapeshifter from last week, that Harrison has coerced into pretending to be him. So that episode last week that seemed kind of pointless actually had a point. So also before any of that, there was Eddie wanting to propose to Iris, which Joe said no to. He asked for Joe's blessing, and Joe was like, no. And then Barry asked Joe why you didn't give him his blessing, and he said, because I know Iris is still in love with you. So we find out after the death of was it Harrison? No, Hannibal Bates. That Harrison has actually been aware the entire season, basically, of their suspicion of him. And Barry goes and finds this video wall where Harrison's got video of stuff from all over the season, and that Harrison's been watching them all along, and he's basically just been waiting for this moment to happen. I think in a way Harrison was hoping it wouldn't have happened so soon, and now Harrison is out, basically on the run, and Eddie takes Iris to a bridge to propose to her, but before he can do it, Reverse Flash shows up, grabs him, takes him to a sewer, which I don't know if it's the same sewer where Grodd's being kept.
Okay.
We didn't see Grodd. But he reveals to Eddie that he is Eobard Thawne, his descendant, and he tosses the ring aside, which was hilarious. And so I guess we're going to see more with Eddie knowing that he is related to Reverse Flash / Harrison Wells in the future. Also, there was a bit of a flashback to when Barry was still in a coma, and Iris touched his hand and got a little static shock. At the end of the episode, after Eddie got taken by Reverse Flash, Flash shows up, tells Iris that he's going to track him down, Eddie down, and they touch hands, and there's a static shock between the two of them, which apparently reveals to Iris that Barry is the Flash now.
Okay.
So she seems to know this finally. I think that's everything.
All right, so lots of revelations going on
Lots
Flash
of stuff
this
happening
week.
on Flash this week. I was glad because the past few weeks it feels like Harrison Wells has been the B plot, and that the A plot has been less important. So I was glad that this whole week basically focused on Harrison Wells and moved that plot forward. I think we've only got 2 episodes left of that show as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about Arrow.
Arrow. So, Arrow, this week we had Oliver training more in Nanda Parbat. He's seemingly brainwashed now, and that seems to be part of his training, because at the beginning of the episode, he kills what seems to be Diggle, but after he kills the guy, we learn that it wasn't actually Diggle, that they'd just been giving him some drug that makes him see things. So it's really more proof that he would be willing to kill Diggle if it came to it. And then Ross gives him the mission to go to Starling City and kill his only conflicting heir, which we learn once he gets to Starling City. I mean, we already knew this, but once he gets to Starling City, we find out that he's got a mission to kill Nyssa. And we get a little bit of Nyssa and Laurel working together, but once it's clear that Oliver is there to kill Nyssa, Nyssa's pretty much resigned to her fate. She decides, okay, this is, as soon as my father chose Oliver to succeed me, this is what was going to happen. So she's okay with it. Laurel's not okay with it. And Nyssa goes to face Oliver. And once he basically has her and is ready to kill her, Laurel and Diggle show up, and Laurel uses the Canary's cry for the first time, and it's a little bit ridiculous looking. Because she does this kind of full mouth scream, but you can tell that the actress isn't screaming, so it just, there's this weird disconnect. Also, it's very electronic sounding, and I've seen video of her using the Canary's cry in other media, and it's not nearly as electronic. It's more of almost a loud, thunderous roar.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a little bit strange. I'm sure that's something that they can work on in the future. At least I hope they do. So yeah, they stopped Nyssa from being killed then. Then Oliver kidnaps Lila, Diggle's wife, to draw them out. And they all go and meet and try to save Lila. And then at this point, Thea shows up in a full, like, Arrow garb. I guess as Red Arrow or Speedy or whatever.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Whatever her...
Speedy, then, that would have to be.
Yeah. And she shoots Oliver in the arm, which stops him from killing, who was it at the time? It was Lila or somebody.
Okay.
And then Oliver gets the air out of his arm. And there's a little bit you can see that Oliver might still be in there somewhere, but he's very clearly willing to kill in the name of his mission. And I don't know how much of that is him putting on a good show or him actually being brainwashed. But ultimately he gets Nyssa, and they go back to Nanda Parbat. And when it's time to kill Nyssa, he's got the sword up, he's about to do it. Then Ross stops him and he's like, okay, I believe you. Actually, what I'd like you to do is get married. So he has the two of them get engaged.
Okay.
And we haven't seen the wedding yet, but I'm sure that's coming. Also, we find out that in the flashbacks, General Shreve, who we thought was a good guy a few weeks ago and has turned out to be a bad guy, had this plan to release a drug they called the Alpha and Omega virus, I think, in Hong Kong. And this seems to be what's leading to the death of Akio, because this drug gets out. Tatsu and Maseo and Oliver are inoculated against it, but it seems that Akio is sick and probably going to die, or at least seemingly die, as a result of this. But then we find out in the future that Nyssa also has a vial of this virus, and Ross tells Oliver he needs to release this virus on Starling City and kill everyone there. So that's what's going to happen next week, I guess.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's very interesting developments on Arrow. So, and I was thinking while you were mentioning, while you're mentioning all this, I don't know if we ever had a show the week that it came out, but Stephen Amell was cast as Casey Jones in Ninja Turtles 2. Yes. So I just thought that was worth mentioning, because when we were at Planet Comic-Con a couple weeks back, Stephen Amell had mentioned that he's watching a lot of superhero movies for an upcoming superhero project, but it wasn't Marvel or DC. Yeah. And everybody at the panel was like, wait, what movie is he talking about? So he's been cast as Casey Jones. And
isn't he a bit old for that role?
I would have thought so, but also I think he's not who I envision Casey Jones being. Yeah. I mean, Casey Jones is kind of a thug who I don't think he finished high school. He's just kind of like a Brooklyn thug, and I don't get that from Stephen Amell, but we'll see how he does with it. So
maybe he's going to grow his hair out?
Well, yeah, maybe, right? That's another thing. So
where's the flashback wig?
Right, yeah. Oh my God. It is what it is, Greg.
It is.
Yeah. All right, so that's Arrow then. Sounds like that show is still trying to figure out what it wants to actually be doing.
From what I've seen, other people are enjoying it more than I am right now.
Okay.
Like, yet again, it seems like we're putting Starling City in danger. I've heard some people joke that, if you lived in Starling City, you'd
want to get out.
Well, you'd start to get the message that May is the time for vacation.
Right.
Just like...
Yeah, I mean, it might be an earthquake. It might be criminals running around town killing people. You just never know.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, that's where we're at on Arrow. So let's go ahead and go over some gaming news, and then we'll go ahead and get to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and our spoiler talk for Avengers. So, gaming this week. The biggest thing really to mention, I should mention that Call of Duty Black Ops 3 had a trailer drop. Neither one of us really play that game.
I haven't seen the trailer yet.
I haven't seen the trailer either. We probably should have before the show, but I understand the impact of that game and that it's big for a lot of people. So if you guys are a fan of Call of Duty...
I played Black Ops 1, but I'm so far out of the Call of Duty franchise at this point.
I really am too. Kevin Spacey really intrigued me last year, and I still didn't play the game. Mm-hmm. So, but if you're into Call of Duty, first-person shooters, things like that, definitely know that you've got your announcement trailer. I think it was officially announced that it was Black Ops 3, so definitely check that out. Also, Disney Infinity. So you guys will remember, a couple months back, or a couple weeks back, whatever, we announced that at Planet Comic-Con we were there, and Ming-Na Wen was there.
Yep, she confirmed that 3.0 was coming out and that Mulan would be a character.
Exactly. And we were off the week that we found this out, but some images had leaked showing the back of the packaging for the individual figures for Disney Infinity 3.0. We saw that...
We got confirmation of 5 characters from Inside Out.
Right, yeah, the new Pixar movie coming out this summer. So we have lots of characters from that. Also, it was worth noting that Mulan was on the back of the packaging.
Mulan on the back. We had Mickey and Minnie, and we also had Olaf from Frozen.
Oh, Frozen, yes, that's right. So seems to be all of the Disney original characters. So, we don't know that for sure. But
there could be more coming, but it's at least the first wave.
Exactly, so, So, and we only really know, at that time, as of that leak, we'd only really know what the Disney originals characters are. And again, we've been talking about this outside before we were doing the show. We expected the entire time that Disney Infinity 3.0 would focus on Star Wars The Force Awakens.
I think everyone did. it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The movie's coming out around that time. It's a Disney property. They could do a lot with it. So we figured either The Force Awakens is going to be the showcase piece for Disney Infinity 3.0, or it's going to be Star Wars Rebels, the new show that Disney's putting a lot of attention behind, and possibly even introducing Rebels characters in the Star Wars comics, and maybe even a tie to them in Star Wars anthologies with the Rogue Nation. I forget the name of the movie, the anthology movie about stealing the Death Star plans, though. There's possibly going to be a tie to the Rebels TV show there. So
I think it's Rogue One. Yeah.
Rogue
Nation was something else that we reviewed.
Okay. So with all of that out of the way, we got another leak this week. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about that leak?
Yeah, it was actually, I think, just yesterday that it leaked that there's going to be a Clone Wars starter pack, which will include Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano.
Right.
And we also see on the cover, at least, Vader and Yoda. So it's possible, pretty likely that those figures are coming in the future. I think Obi-Wan was also on the cover.
Okay.
And a couple other characters.
So most notable about this is that it is not Rebels.
No.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that Rebels isn't going to happen yet. I'm curious because this pack only comes with 2 figures.
Right.
And there's no toy box game discs. So it's entirely possible we will see multiple different starters, or there might be a Rebel starter, a Clone Wars starter, let you pick.
That would be fantastic.
That would be fantastic. What I would say, though, is we're probably going to see, and I don't see Rebels, so I don't know if this is consistent across the board, but I think we're going to have, at the very least, the Clone Wars art style for all of the Star Wars characters in the game.
Interesting.
Because I would think they'd want to keep that art style consistent across the board, and it does align pretty closely with the art style we've got.
Yeah, I mean, these are basically Pixar-looking figures anyway. Yeah. What is notable about the change in art style between Clone Wars and Rebels is that Clone Wars, the way it was shot, the way it was lit, I felt personally almost looked like marionettes with no strings as far as how realistic the models look, but how fake they looked, if I'm making any sense. There was a lot of detail in them with the hair and the texture on the clothing. They just looked like, stringless marionettes to me. I mean, that were very well animated. Rebels is definitely a step down in the animation department, so it's a bit more simplistic. The Wookiees don't look nearly as cool on Rebels and nearly as detailed on Rebels as they did on Clone Wars.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's also been confirmed since the leak yesterday, and I think this is more damage control than anything, that the next DITV with Vignoci and
John Vignoci, the game's producer.
It's going to have some sort of Star Wars announcement in it. And I think it's going to be on May 5th. He's going to miss the day by 1, but yeah, so that's probably when we're going to see the first official announcement of anything.
Okay.
And I think they wanted to wait even longer, but it's just at this point...
Probably wanted to wait till E3 or something.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they really need to... They need to do something because the leaks are out of control.
Yeah. So, I love the idea that we're getting different starter kits, that you would have your Rebels starter kit, that you had your Clone Wars starter kit, your potential original trilogy starter kit. That would be a lot more content to play, and that's the biggest complaint I have about Disney Infinity is there's tons and tons of characters, but you get about 4 hours of gameplay on a story, and that's it. I mean, there's never any DLC updates to add more content to the game. It's always just more and more characters, and you can only do so much with a character in a toy box. But if we're getting this many starter kits, if the game is that successful, and it seems like it might be, that maybe we would even get another Disney original starter kit with this new set. Or maybe they would do a Marvel starter kit with this set.
Oh, it was also confirmed confirmed leak. On one of the box packs that there will be an inside-out playset as well, which isn't terribly surprising since if they're going to have 5 figures, you better hope there's going to be a playset, right?
Yeah, so I mean, there alone, we're probably looking at least 3 different playsets. So hopefully that's not everything. I would really like to see a Marvel playset added. I mean, they could do something really easy by just having the Age of Ultron playset, have Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver be the characters that you're the new ones to the game, and then all the other Avengers you've already got can join in if you've got them. So I think that would make a lot of sense.
I would love to see a Marvel playset in 3.0. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would really like to see that. We haven't obviously seen any leaks on Marvel characters at all. Right. You got to think there's going to be some sort of Ultron release. We'll see.
It's a big movie, so or at the very least, Ant-Man would probably get announced as a playable character, even if there's no story content for him. So, all right, so that's kind of the big Disney Infinity update.
And then also there have been images. I don't think this is even a leak; this may be official, but there's been images released of the PS Vita starter.
Oh yes, with the black suit Spidey. Yep. Yeah. So, which, by the way, way late on that. Yeah. I mean, that game's been out since September of last year. So, if any of you Vita players out there, first of all, if any Vita players out there are playing this game or looking forward to it, let us know in the comments. I'm very curious to know who's been waiting for this. But if you plan on picking it up too, let us know. I'd be very curious to see, how Spider-Man is integrated into the game. If you automatically get Black Suit Spidey, or if you only get the regular Spidey and you still have to go out of your way to get...
Well, and the playset comes with a portal, which you can put your Black Suit Spidey on. So I'm curious, like, there must be some way to not have to bring that with you, because it's the Vita,
Oh, yeah, because
right?
of the Vita, yeah. So maybe... This would be kind of interesting. And again, maybe the Vita's audience is so small that you could scan a figure in one time and have them permanently unlocked in your game.
I would hope.
Yeah, so that could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, as far as the Family Guy Star Trek crossover that we've been playing.
They've extended it another week. It won't end until May 7th at 1 p.m. our time.
So we'll be covering our final thoughts on that next week. And personally, I'm glad that we've gotten another week because there's a little bit of... mismanaged release timing with this game, and really the economy system of the game. Again, we haven't dropped a cent into it, so it's probably our own faults to some extent.
I put $4.
Well, you put $4, but basically we could be spending more money on the game than we are. But especially at the tail end of the Star Trek event, it seemed like the barrier to entry was incredibly high unless you finally started spending money. Yeah. So again, we'll do our full report on that next week. So now, guys, with all of that news out of the way, we are going to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and we're going to talk about Avengers: Age of Ultron. We are going to go into full spoiler detail. Just easier if we don't have to filter ourselves as we talk about everything. So if you guys haven't seen the movie, if you haven't seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or you plan on seeing it, whatever, bookmark this video, come back later. But we're going to go ahead and get into things. Let's go ahead and first talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, since it led in. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would say, integrated nicely into the Age of Ultron movie.
Well, before we get to the Age of Ultron integration, I have to say this is one of my favorite episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ever.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I really, really enjoyed this episode. It was action-packed. There was some drama and heart and a lot of good stuff going on in this episode.
Yeah, Chloe Bennett, by the way, man, she must have been working on this episode for weeks.
Yeah, that one shot where, I'm sure she must have been on set after hours practicing.
Right? So there's a shot in the episode, I would say it's at least 2 minutes long, if not longer, of the camera basically behind Chloe Bennett for most of it, as she's rolling over a table and disarming guys and then tumbling forward, and then she shoots a pipe and gas comes out and she sneaks around and gets a guy from behind. I mean, she clears an entire room by herself, like full-on Black Widow style. So if it wasn't her, they did a very good job of hiding the fact that it wasn't her.
I gotta think
really
it was
good.
her.
Yeah. So props to her, though, man. That was definitely a highlight from this episode.
Oh yeah.
Also, other things that we saw in this episode, we got an update on. Well, really, Hydra, I guess, is back in a way that they haven't really been present since pre-break. Mm-hmm. So we saw Dr. List, and that he was working in the same facility that we saw at the end of the post-credit scene for Captain America: Winter Soldier, where the twins were, Wanda and Pietro. They were in that same facility, and we saw that Deathlock and Lincoln had been held there.
Yep.
And
Bakshi was there.
Bakshi was there, and they were starting experimentation on both of those guys.
They started doing some pretty grisly surgeries on them. They took out Mike's eye.
Right, yeah. Also, I thought it was notable that I don't know if this was intentional, but Mike basically lost his eye and he lost his leg, and they made him useless to the team in this episode, and arguably not able to help with the big Age of Ultron threat that was going on. So I don't know if they intended it to be taken that way or if they just wanted him out of commission for our heroes on the show, but still thought that was pretty notable. And also, Lincoln, I think, had it a little bit worse.
Yeah.
We did have a really cool team up this week. All 6 of the original cast members were back on sort of like another mission. And it's kind of funny that Grant Ward even comments on that as they're about to go save the day.
It's so great that we're all together here again.
Right?
And everybody's just looking at him like, nah.
Right? And there was an amazing scene. So I think personally that Grant Ward's completely irredeemable. He did some pretty stone cold things in season 1. I mean, things that were not John Garrett just kind of like pure pressuring him into stuff. I mean, he flat out shot guys in the face, and he was very evil in season 1. So I'm of the mindset that he should never be redeemed. And one thing I loved about this episode is when they're going over the mission briefing, it's Ward's basically chance to explain what's going on. And he finally says, I'm going to go ahead and address, what did he say, the elephant on the plane?
The elephant on the plane, yeah.
And he talks to everybody about poor him, and yes, he's been through all this stuff, but he's made amends to make things better. And after he gives this big speech that in any other TV show would have been, all right, let's get ourselves together and get going. Everybody on the team completely shoots him down. It's like,
they're like, nah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I shot you.
Yeah, exactly, right? That was great. So it was just a really nice moment. I love that this show is not going to forgive Ward. I think that needs to stay in place.
Yep.
So that's...
On the other hand, we have some redemption for Kara.
Agent 33, yep.
So yeah, it's clear that, I mean, even before when she was brainwashed and it's really not her fault, but at the same time it's like now like she's done some bad stuff since, but I think S.H.I.E.L.D. is still willing to help her, and I guess at the end of the episode we can get to that later. But
sure. Well, and then of course Coulson was arrested well, not arrested, but he was apprehended at the end of the last episode. So we saw Coulson talking to oh my goodness, what's the
Gonzalez?
Gonzalez, yes, talking to Gonzalez through this episode, kind of laying out what was going on. Coulson lets cat out of the bag in this episode.
Yes.
He announces that Nick Fury's alive.
He does.
So and he
right before saying, "I got to take this call from Maria."
Right. So basically, Gonzalez
really F you to Gonzalez.
Hey, right. The whole time, this whole second half of the season, Gonzalez has been saying Coulson's a loose cannon. He has got no business doing this. Nobody gave him the authority. And Coulson basically is like, you know what? Fury gave me the authority. I'm going to go ahead and tell you now. He's still alive. And everything Gonzalez was moving towards is pointless at this point.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a great moment. I really wonder what that means for next week as far as the rivalry between these guys. Gonzalez almost seems like a useless character at this point. I don't know what reason he'd have to stick around.
Yeah.
So very curious to see where the show goes. But I guess let's go ahead and talk unless there's something else you want to mention.
Well, Cal got permission from Jiaying to stay at
yes.
Afterlife. Yeah.
Yep. So, and also they kind of addressed the fact that Reyna is seeing the future.
Yeah.
So they had a nice...
That was a little bit weird, the way she kind of like throws her head back and is like having a vision that way. I didn't really like the way that was portrayed, but yeah, she had a little bit of a vision about Ultron. She saw Loki's scepter.
Yep.
And made some comment about how men of metal were going to take over the planet or something. So.
And one of the stories about this episode, what led up to that really awesome scene with Skye, Daisy Johnson doing what she did, is they were infiltrating a winter Hydra base. And it turns out that this base, well, winter, it's in Antarctica, but this base was the same base that we saw in Captain America. They're storming in there to go ahead and save their friends, Mike Peterson and Lincoln. And Coulson's there to retrieve intel at the same time that they're there to rescue their own people.
And he actually lies to May about it, too.
Yeah, after everything. And after May even calls him out earlier in the episode on not being honest. He goes and does it again. And he basically says, I'm compartmentalizing. I am the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. This is what I do. And May is not happy with this.
Yeah.
So I really wonder if there's going to be a rift building between these guys.
And when he's sitting there trying to get the information out of the computer, she shoots some guy that's about to come in. And she's like, if you don't come right now, you're next.
Yeah.
Like, there's clearly some animosity building between the two of them.
Yep.
Also, we had Simmons and Fitz. Simmons tells Fitz that they need to bring the, scatter bombs or something?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Fitz was kind of joking about... Splinter bombs, yes. Fitz was joking in the episode about how Ward's going to be on the team with them, and, there's never been a better time than now to go ahead and take him out. And Simmons is like, you know what, you're right. And she pulls out scatter bombs, and Fitz is like, well, you're joking. And she's not joking. I mean, she brings the scatter bombs with her. Does she set it up to where she's on Ward's team, or does it just work out that way?
I think she probably influenced it. I don't know if it was made explicit, but yeah, she was definitely happy to be on Ward's team.
Yeah.
And she's, after the scene where Skye clears the room, Ward's kind of looking around, doing something, and she is about to throw the
scatter bomb on Ward.
And Bakshi comes in to try to stop it, and the bomb lands on him, and he just explodes.
Yeah, that's it. So Bakshi's gone, man.
Yeah.
For a guy who cheated death once already, I don't think he's going to cheat this one.
Yeah.
But he certainly left much more abruptly than I thought we were going to see him leave. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was really kind of Ward's mind-controlled lackey at this point. Yeah. So
I'm a little bit disappointed there because I kind of thought that, I don't know, he had more power in that situation.
Yeah.
The only way I can really see him still being around is that he intentionally had some decoy come to them and work with them for that break. Okay. But I mean, that's really a long shot at this point. But see, then Ward has a perfect opportunity to kill Simmons,
and he doesn't do it.
And he basically shows her that she's kind of more of a monster than him at this point.
Yeah, and I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And Simmons really has been through a transformation this entire season. She's gone from being somebody in season 1 who can't lie, and it's kind of a joke, to somebody who's really able to just change your mind about her, frankly. But she's got secrets, and she doesn't trust anybody. She doesn't trust powered people. She doesn't trust Ward. She really seems capable of going down a dark path.
And only she and Ward know what happened to Bakshi at this point.
True, and only she and Ward know that she almost tried to kill Ward.
Yeah.
So, and Ward had the opportunity to mention that to Coulson, and he didn't.
Oh yeah. So then at the end of the episode, Ward's talking to Coulson on the phone, and he tries to convince Coulson to take in Agent 33.
Yep.
That basically Ward's basically saying, I know that I deserve nothing from you guys, but it was not her fault, any of the things she did. So
yeah,
help her out.
I mean, it was a surprisingly nice thing for Ward to do, given everything that's been going on. So let's go ahead and then cap off with what they discovered, what Coulson discovered, that led into Age of Ultron.
Yep.
So it turns out that, as we kind of saw at the end of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Dr. List and Baron Strucker, even though we don't see him in the episode, have been experimenting on Loki's scepter from the first Avengers movie. And the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. don't really know why. They just know that they had something, and Coulson made sure that Maria Hill knew what was going on. And he actually says, we need to call the Avengers in on this one.
Yep.
So that very much leads into the beginning of Avengers, Age of Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
So that movie opens with the Avengers. They weren't in Antarctica this time. I forget where they were. But
wherever Strucker's fortress
yeah,
is.
somewhere Europe. But basically, they were storming a facility that Baron Strucker was at, a castle almost, and Loki's scepter was there, and that's why they went there, is they wanted to capture Loki's scepter. And in Age of Ultron, the heroes end up finding, first of all, that what do they call them? Enhanced. Mm-hmm. That he had enhanced people with him. There was a really great introduction to how Scarlet Witch's power, or not Scarlet Witch, how Wanda Maximoff's powers worked, and how Pietro Maximoff's powers worked.
Yep.
We see, Pietro is definitely faster than everybody on the team, and nobody really knows how to handle it. But I like the way that they sort of showed Wanda's powers when she first started showing up. She was very twitchy and like moving her hands around, kind of like scary. They actually kind of dropped that.
Yeah,
I was kind of disappointed.
They kind of portrayed her as more villainous early on. And
then,
as it progresses, they minimize that.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of inconsistency in the movie. I did really like the idea that she was, because if you know the comics, Wanda's not mentally stable. I mean, initially she is, but she does a lot that ends up ruining her mind. So they kind of show the unstable Wanda there towards the beginning of the film, and I thought that was a very interesting way to kind of bring the character in.
So at the resolution of that, we saw List there, and Tony shot him.
Yes.
But we don't know if he's still around. It's I guess we'll find out next
week on S.H.I.E.L.D., yeah.
But there was a great little bit when Tony's looking for their secret experimentation lair, where he's like, please be a secret door, please be a secret
Yes,
door.
I love that.
Yay!
Yeah, the little yay, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I really thought, too, we've seen other reviewers comment on this, it was great to see Tony walk out of his armor and like put it into sentry mode.
Just
and
so casual. Like,
exactly, yeah, and he's like just completely comfortable to start working, and his...
We should also say there was no reference whatsoever to what brought him back to Iron Man.
Exactly. So if you guys don't remember, at the end of Iron Man 3, one of the ways that Tony proves to Pepper Potts that he's kind of over being a hero and over putting himself in danger is he blows up every single suit after they take down Guy Pearce's character.
Yep.
And, I mean, it's everything, even the Mark 42 armor. And at this movie, he's back. He's got not only this suit of armor he starts the movie in, we find out he's got a satellite in space that has reinforcements.
Yeah, he just seems to be back in the saddle again.
Yeah.
And Pepper's nowhere to be seen. They referenced her a couple times.
Exactly, yeah. So we're not getting another Iron Man movie, so I just wonder if they've decided to gloss over the end of Iron Man 3. I mean, I know some people had problems with Iron Man 3. I personally didn't, but I didn't think anyone had a problem with the way that he chose to end the film.
Yeah.
So it's just weird that they kind of didn't acknowledge it. So... and then as we moved on through the movie, so they go to the Hydra facility. They find out that they did actually have the Infinity Staff. And is it that early in the movie, or the Infinity Staff, the Loki staff, is it that early in the movie that they realize that there's something inside the staff that's not right, or is it?
I think it's not until he gets back to...
and brings it back to Avengers Tower, okay.
But, well, I mean, I guess the audience knows because Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are completely okay with him taking it. In fact, they encourage him to take the staff.
Oh, yes,
She mind controls him and has him see this vision, and then they're right there when he takes it.
And that's the thing, too, is we kind of see that one of Scarlet Witch's... Okay, sorry about the cut there, guys. We had a little bit of an interruption, but we're back, and we're going to go ahead and continue on with the movie here. We have about 8 minutes left, so not as much time as I'd like to go ahead and talk about the spoilers, but let's just kind of go ahead and truck on through them. So it's worth noting that the castle that Baron von Strucker was in actually had one of the flying serpent monsters from Avengers, and it was a great sort of reveal that we saw that. They were using alien technology. They were trying to create... I don't know if they were trying to create Ultron per se, but they were definitely trying to create automated soldiers of some sort using the alien technology. And Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver definitely wanted the Avengers to get away with the staff so they could figure out what was going on.
And that's the first time in the movie we see Scarlet Witch mind control somebody, or at least put images in their mind. And that's Tony sees this image of all the Avengers dead, that like we saw in the trailer, Cap, S.H.I.E.L.D. split in half, stuff like that. And that is kind of a running motif throughout the film. Later on, I think in Wakanda, basically they all get hexed again.
Yes, exactly.
And that is actually, we had predicted War Machine was going to die. That doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't actually.
The hexing of their minds is actually really the main rift, the main thing that causes a rift between them in the movie, because they all kind of realize,
Tony, for one, is like scared.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is. Like, especially after the events of Avengers. I would argue Tony's doing some of the most questionable stuff among the group of Avengers.
Yeah.
But he's motivated by the fear that they don't understand what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I necessarily agree with what he's doing. He's definitely seems to be going out of his way to drive a rift in the team, and he's pulling Banner in with him.
Yep, and Banner is not a fan of it. Like he expresses discontent and only helps him at the beginning. Well, and he tries to help him toward the end, I guess, but really it's more Thor who powers up the Vision box, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So, but basically, we're seeing a wedge drive between the team, and that's one thing. It's kind of nice to see the threads building towards Civil War. And again, for the sake of time, I'll just mention, by the end of the movie, they almost seem to wrap everything up pretty nicely. So I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more of a rift as the film ended.
It didn't end on more conflict, which kind of surprised me. But you at least have the seeds sown for that later.
Yeah. So, and then of course we should mention the party scene too. It was awesome the way that I talked about this movie being very connected and people coming back and everyone being there. That you've seen before. We saw War Machine. Sam
Falcon.
Wilson was back, and Sam Wilson directly talking about the update on what's going on with Winter Soldier, which is pretty nice. Talking about Cap trying to find a place for himself. So I really appreciated the attention to continuity. I mean, this really feels like the most universe-building film we've had since probably the original Iron Man almost.
And a great Stan Lee cameo, too.
And a great Stan Lee cameo. Yeah, what was he, a veteran of Nam? Or was he
was some kind of veteran. And Thor had this drink that was like,
And then Stan Lee, when he's drunk and being dragged out, just says Excelsior. So that was absolutely fantastic. So that was really, really great. But after the party, Ultron appears at the party. First of all, what they get from the scepter is that there's actually an AI or some sort of alien presence inside the scepter.
It doesn't. The AI was not in the scepter, but the scepter, the mind gem, that part of the scepter was like the last thing he needed to make his AI work.
Okay, that's right. The Ultron program that he'd been building. So basically, Ultron as an AI exists, and Jarvis as an AI exists, and they kind of war. Mm-hmm. And seemingly, Jarvis loses the war. Yeah. And Tony's got some drones that he's been using, much like we saw in Iron Man 3, only this time they're not spare suits. They're actually drones he specifically created to have an Avenger around the world every time, or at any time. So the Ultron AI is awakened, and he...
Probably in the most serious, most menacing part
really,
of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's when you get the I Have No Strings, they play that music. I mean, it's really the scariest I think Ultron is the entire movie right then and there. So they dispatch them pretty quickly and easily, but he definitely establishes that he's a threat, and he moves on. Mm-hmm. So he uses the World Wide Web to move on. Yeah. So after the party... help me out here. What happens? Well, of course, we get the distrust because Tony didn't say anything about any of this to anybody, and they find out that Bruce is involved, and there's a bit of bickering. And then there's an event that causes them to have to put that to the side. What was it? Is that when they're in Wakanda?
Well, I think after the party scene, when Ultron shows up, one of his little robots gets away. Does he still have control of the Iron Legion building factory at that point? I know he's building more robots, and eventually he ends up at Strucker's facility. Yeah. And that's where he's building his robots. But at some point, he gets the idea to go to Wakanda to get vibranium.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we end up. In Africa, we see Claw for the first time, played by Andy Serkis. It's notable that soon after we are introduced to Claw, he suddenly loses his left arm. Yeah. So it seems like we'll be getting, a sonic replacement or whatever they end up doing in the movies. But I'm sure that'll be addressed in Black Panther.
And he's got all this money now. I wonder what he's going to do with all
Yes, exactly, yeah. So, and they establish that Wakanda is a very rich and very precious ore. And they even say back at the party, at post-party, that this was something that, everybody's aware of in the Marvel Universe. They just never really acknowledge that it's kind of an important element. Yeah. So we then have the second confrontation between the twins, Maximoff and Pietro, and the Avengers. Yeah. We see that's when Thor has the vision with Heimdall. It's when Cap has a vision and he sees Peggy. Basically, everybody living out their regrets or their biggest fears.
And they mind control the Hulk, and that's when we get the Hulkbuster
Iron Man scene, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. That was done very, very nicely. I loved there was a particularly funny shot during that where Iron Man has Hulk down and he starts like hammer fisting Hulk's face.
Go to sleep.
Yeah, I mean that was really great, and I love that Tony, as he decides to take Hulk through top down to the bottom of a construction site, he buys the building before he destroys it, just so his conscience is clear. So great moments there. And after the Avengers have been shaken up, frankly, they have to go to a place because now they realize that anything that S.H.I.E.L.D. had, any sort of documents, whatever, Ultron's aware of, and this is not safe. So then we get the biggest character growing moment that we've had from anybody in so far. Hawkeye has a whole family that we never even knew about. Yeah. So they go to a cabin where his wife is, who's expecting. The Avengers kind of have a moment. Cap and Iron Man are while chopping wood. Cap kind of challenges Iron Man on his philosophy of destroy the threat before it arrives.
Also, Thor decides to take off and investigate leads from his vision more. And
exactly.
He gets together with Selvig and or Selvig.
Selvig, yeah.
And then goes to like some pool where
right.
he coerces himself to have this vision about all the Infinity Stones that are out there.
Yes, and that's kind of our first major sort of. There's always been stones appearing in these movies, but this vision is really, for anyone who's not on board with Infinity Gauntlet or Infinity War or doesn't understand that there's a point to seeing all these stones, that's really kind of the first in-universe, I think, explanation that we get. Yep. Maybe the Collector and Guardians, but I think more so Thor kind of says flat out, this is a problem and this is what's going on. Mm-hmm. So he's very much, everybody has a moment here where they're very much important to the story. Yep. So after we get, we leave the farm, we basically go in for a big rah charge, and despite the conflict that had been happening up to that point, the Avengers have a showdown with Ultron in made-up European country, Sokovia. Yeah. And we get a really awesome just showdown between Ultron and all of his robots.
Ultron gets the idea to basically turn the city of Sokovia into an asteroid.
Yes.
Starts lifting it up into the air, and then is going to drop it back down on the planet.
Because he wants to wipe out the entire planet.
Yeah.
It's classic robot motivation. Humanity's the disease. I need to take care of that before everything can be
This
fine.
also causes Wanda and Pietro to realize that
who had been teamed with Ultron up to this point.
Helped him up to this point, that he's kind of crazy. And that's not really what they had in mind to wipe out all of humanity. So they turn code a little bit, and that's probably not given as much screen time as it needs to be.
No.
There's a little bit more of that later with Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch, where he's like, if you walk out of this building, you're an Avenger.
Yep.
And then there's a bit where when they're trying to save all the people on Sokovia and it doesn't look like they can do it, Fury shows up with a helicarrier.
Which ties into S.H.I.E.L.D. So Fury offhandedly mentions as he has his helicarrier, and we commented in the War Machine trigger that we talked about last week that it seemed like he was fighting outside of a helicarrier. Well, the helicarrier is in the movie.
Yep.
And Nick Fury mentions that some friends helped him get old friends helped him get a helicarrier for this occasion to show up as dramatically as he did. So
we're probably going to see that next week.
Yeah, that's got to be something going on with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So really, the Avengers save the day, and Ultron is. We didn't even talk about Vision.
Yeah.
So we may have another video where we talk more about our feelings about this movie. But basically, the Vision was introduced in grand fashion. It was part of Thor's vision to know that. Well, Thor's vision to know that Vision needed to be powered up. Mm-hmm. But after all of this is done. We have Ultron beat. There's one robot left. Vision has a great moment where he talks to Ultron. They're basically kind of the same guy, but one's evil, one's light.
Yeah.
And Vision is, he's just introduced in a really cool way.
Yeah.
But we also find out that he's got an infinity gem in his forehead, which is different from the comics, but it's also what's kind of powering him. But then everything's resolved, and we get probably a really cool moment, universe-building moment again. There's actually like an Avengers training camp at the end of this movie. So as we move into Civil War, we now have a second team of Avengers being formed. This second team of Avengers is Scarlet Witch, Falcon, War Machine, the Vision, Captain America, and Scarlet Witch. So he's got, Scarlett Johansson playing Black Widow. So we've got kind of Cap's Avengers team. The rest of the Avengers are all kind of dissipated. At the end of this movie, Hulk's missing. Because who knows? He's either in the water or he took off somewhere in stealth and we don't know where he's at.
Yep.
Iron Man is a bit downtrodden about everything that's taken place. We're not really sure where he stands on this.
Yeah, he took off at the end, and who knows what he's up to.
Yeah, so Thor's back in Asgard. He's a bit concerned about the visions again. Ever since Thor had the vision that he had with Heimdall where everything seemed dire, he's been kind of focused on that. So overall, though, a really great movie, I think. I mean, it's definitely one you guys want to check out. Again, I can't say it enough. There's a bunch of universe building, and there's a bunch of patting you on the back or rewarding the fans who have stuck through all the movies so far. There are so many new characters introduced, but there's so many characters brought back that it really kind of helped make the film feel much bigger than I think it could have felt.
And a lot of setup for future films as well.
Absolutely. So, well, guys, that's our Project Geek Week for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll definitely talk about Avengers some more as the movie's had a chance to be out, as we've had some time to think more about the movie ourselves.
Yeah.
So, thank you for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week.